We'll record it as well.
You're
All right.
so organized.
Smoke and mirrors, baby. Smoke and mirrors. I just pretend. And then I pretend like I'm not pretending.
That's the way to do it.
Hi, everyone. It's so good to see you. Hi, Christine. Hi,
Hi,
Ruthie Ann. Hi, Bonnie. Hi, Janet. Hello, hello. We are live streaming into the group now. So anybody who's watching from Facebook, just go ahead and jump on in. There's a Zoom link right there at the top of the page somewhere. So you can find it and just hop on in and join the conversation. We have the wonderful, the inimitable Lori Hammond today. And I am so excited. I've been trying to get her back for like 2 years now, I think. Because didn't you do one of these like a couple years ago? I think you did.
Can't remember. It seems like I did, but I'm so stinking excited to be here.
Yay, 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 yay.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to the August Spotlight, guest hosted, of course, by the one and only Lori Hammond. Like I said, we're streaming live in the Hypnotherapy Uncensored Facebook group. I'm also recording this and it's going to go into our YouTube channel. So if you do not want to be seen for all time on that, then you might want to take your video off. But I would love to, have all of your smiling faces here. So please stick around if you feel comfortable with that. And I will pop the YouTube channel address up in the chat box over on the side here in a bit so that you guys can all subscribe. Let's see. Also, if you feel like you benefit from these bi-monthly live events, please feel free to kick in $2 or, as I learned from Lori, two notes of appreciation to offset the time and the labor and all the stuff that goes into the organizing part of things, which does not come naturally to me, by the way. Just saying, it's not an easy thing. And I'll put that link over in the chat box as well. So I'm going to introduce Lori. Hold on. I just had to let a couple of people in. Okay, so Lori is a professional hypnotist. She specializes in weekly group sessions, which she says are the highlight of her week. She became a hypnotist after finding freedom from lifelong depression through hypnosis. And now she's passionate about helping people understand the power that they have to change their own life and step out of debilitating behaviors. And Lori was also one of the first people that gave me the courage to go ahead and do my own thing, dance to the beat of my own hypno drummer. Simply by watching her do her own thing and do it so successfully, it just really, I found it incredibly empowering. And you're always so open and sincere and upfront about your journey, the highs, the lows, all of it. And that really, just mad respect for you, babe, mad respect. I don't know if you know this or not, but just witnessing you as as you sort of blossomed into who you've become over the past few years, because I think you were maybe like a year before me graduating MMHA, right around there. So you're like a few steps ahead of me always. And that's really encouraging because I see what you're doing and I'm like, oh, maybe that's my next step. Maybe I'm going to be doing something like that.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was exactly what I needed to see and hear at the time. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. You've been just such an inspiration for me. We're going to just sort of go casual today and just respond to questions that you guys have. And Lori can tell us a little bit about her story and what she's doing these days and all that stuff. But if you do have questions, please pop them into the chat box and then we will just read them off. And then at the end, I do want you to save a little bit of time because I always ask every Spotlight guest host what their most interesting or surprising or unusual experience has been as a hypnotist. And so save just a little bit of time so we can address that. All right, take it away, Miss Hammond.
I just want to start by thanking all of you so much for being here. Thank you to those of you who are watching live and who are on Facebook watching live and who are watching the replay. I'm stinking grateful for you. And what Carissa said is true. I'm a terrible faker. I'm really bad at making stuff up. So if you ask me anything, I'm going to give you a candid, real answer. And it will just be the gospel according to Lori Hammond. Some people might have different ideas, but I'll tell you my experience, what I have observed, and I'm happy to answer questions about anything. If I don't know the answer, I'll tell you that. I just saw on Facebook this morning that someone had put a post up to this call saying Lori Hammond does group sessions, and they were wanting to know more about doing group sessions. So if you have any questions specific to doing group sessions, I would love to answer those, but I'll answer questions for anything. I do want you to know right up front, I've done very few in-person sessions. Like I could probably count on my 10 fingers the in-person one-on-one sessions that I have done, and that was by choice. And I don't do one-on-one sessions anymore. Once in a while, I'll offer a one-on-one session as a bonus to signing up for one of my groups, but I do them very rarely. And when I do, they're always virtual. So if you have any questions about in-person one-on-one sessions, I'm not your lady. But if you have questions about virtual sessions or about groups or about sales, like that word kind of makes me gag in my mouth a little bit just to say it, but I've worked a lot on understanding the psychology of selling our hypnosis products. And many of us, I know a lot of hypnotists struggle to sell their products and services because it's like sales is such a pukey word. So if you have any questions about that, I'm here to answer that. So I'll just tell my story. And I know Chris is watching the chat, so let me know if any questions come through. Okay, so I grew up in a really angry, highly volatile household. I actually just talked about this on my group hypnosis session that I did yesterday. I shared with people that I was a really, really angry kid and a really angry kid. I actually got sent to boarding school for bad kids when I was 15 years old. It was a year-long boarding school because I had such an out of control anger problem. But that anger only exhibited itself at home, because at school I was like the shy, timid wallflower that didn't really talk to anyone, didn't have a lot of friends, just kind of kept to myself. And people were shocked that I was like just this furious, irate person in real life. I was in therapy from the time I was 12 years old. My parents divorced when I was 12, and my dad was anti-therapy. My mom was pro-therapy. So she had me in therapy all the time. Oh, you guys. And I don't think that all therapy is this way. This is my experience with therapy and seeing many different therapists. Every time I went to therapy, I dreaded it because I felt a little bit more broken. I felt guilty for not doing whatever we had talked about the time before. And by the end of the therapy session, of each therapy session, I just felt broken. I felt like there was something wrong with me. I felt depressed. It was a very discouraging experience, and I didn't see any measurable progress. Again, this is just my experience. I'm not saying this is how all therapy is. This is just my experience. And I am a voracious reader. I love to read. And so I would read all kinds of books about therapizing myself, getting better, working on this thing. And none of them really helped me. I didn't see any difference in mostly my depression, also in my disordered eating, my relationships with people. There were just so many areas of my life where I felt like I sucked and none of them seemed to get better after all the therapy and reading. There was one point when after my divorce, which I was married for 15 years, got divorced 16 years ago. I think it's been almost 17 years now. And I thought I knew that therapy was the answer, that I needed therapy to get better. And I wanted to be better so badly. And so I saved every penny. I did not even have furniture in my house, but I saved enough money to be able to go to therapy. And I went to that therapist every week. And after week of seeing that therapist, he looked me in the eye and he said, "Lori, I think you're always just going to be a little broken." And I'm like, what the hell am I paying you for? To just, sit here and stay broken. And it was such a frustrating experience. And I don't think I ever went back to him after that. I have paid for my kids to see a therapist. He's actually a hypnotherapist. He does hypnosis and therapy, but he was trained as a therapist first. And he's amazing. And he has helped my kids so much. So I just want to put that out there, that I'm not anti-therapy. It just didn't help me. So it was beginning of 2017. I started just listening to podcasts. I had found Tim Ferriss. Tim Ferriss started a podcast, and I started thinking, what other podcasts can I listen to? And I found this podcast called Brain Software by Mike Mandel. And I just binge listened to that podcast. And I remember thinking, these guys are crazy. Like these things that Mike Mandel is talking about, there's no way it can work this good. There's no way hypnosis works like this. It just can't be. And there's a seed planted, and I had grown up afraid of hypnosis. I grew up in a really strict religious household where we weren't allowed to watch the Smurfs or Scooby-Doo because there was hypnosis in it. And hypnosis was as the sin of the devil. And I was really afraid of hypnosis. And I had been kind of questioning some things in my religion and kind of stepping back from the religious views that I had at that point for a few years. And so me deciding to learn hypnosis was kind of like the final nail in the casket of me saying, I'm going to find my own spirituality that resonates for me. And it's interesting because now I've come full circle, and I'm much more accepting of people inside the church I grew up in, but I also don't necessarily subscribe to those doctrines anymore. I don't say that publicly very often because I know everybody has their own viewpoints. And I respect your viewpoint, but I decided to sign up for Mike Mandel's Hypnosis Academy. And I remember going through the academy and I just devoured it. I went through really quickly. And then I went to Hypnothoughts for the first time in 2017. And I remember when I got to the top of that escalator where the conference room was, it was like the feeling of love in that space was almost palpable. Like I could almost feel the love in that space. And I have goosebumps just talking about it now, and because I just saw Elizabeth's face. But I just felt so connected, and that people were so open-hearted and so friendly. And I'm a hardcore introvert who doesn't have a lot of friends, who doesn't make friends super easily. But being in that conference, I connected with so many people on such a meaningful heart level. It was just a beautiful experience. And Chris Thompson was talking to me outside by the pool, this celebrity whose podcast I'd been listening to for a year. And he mentioned the training in Toronto, the brain software training in Toronto, the Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy. And as soon as he walked away, I signed up for it. It like took my very last pennies because I had just quit my job as a hairstylist to become a full-time hypnotist, which I don't necessarily recommend. I have a story about how that transition happened, but I wanted to be a hypnotist. I felt like it was my life's work, and I had done a lot of soul searching and wanted to do this. And so I spent my last pennies to go to Canada. And when I got there, I couldn't afford a hotel, so I couch surfed. I do not recommend this, but it was a really positive experience for me. And I took the bus and a train to get to Mike Mandel's training every day. And it absolutely changed my life because I got to actually start to practice the techniques that I had learned online. It was no longer theory, but it was like hands-on. And I saw people's lives changed at that training. And my life was changed at that training. So I learned hypnosis to help myself with my weight, and it did okay. I think if I would implement the tools more consistently, I would do even better. I'm a few pounds up right now because I've been going through some health problems, and I've been eating to cope with those health problems. I take full responsibility for it. But what happened, this magical side effect that I never thought would have happened. And that is that it eradicated decades. I'm going to get emotional. I apologize. Decades of lifelong depression. And I'm talking deep depression. And I had been diagnosed with severe clinical depression. I had tried all the meds. I had tried all the therapy. I had tried everything to help my depression. And nothing worked until I found hypnosis. And I will tell you, I still have my moments. Like I mentioned, hi, Matt. I've been having some real struggles with my health lately, and that's kind of like I can feel my body wanting to get depressed. I can feel myself going back to that place, but I know how to get out of it now. I know how to step out of it. I know that I don't have to stay in it, and that's because of hypnosis. And that is the reason I decided to become a hypnotist, because it changed my life so radically that I felt like I would be doing a disservice by not sharing this with as many people as possible. And it's been hard. sorry, I'm getting the juice out of my eyes. It's been hard, like just knowing that this is what you're meant to do, that this is your life's work isn't enough. Like stinking Field of Dreams. I don't know how many of you have seen Field of Dreams where they say, if you build it, they will come. It's BS. There's so much that goes into actually getting people in with you, and it's hard work and it feels disingenuous because you're selling, and what you really want to do is just love on people and help people and nourish people. And you can't, like this selling piece has to be in there. Once in a while, somebody might look out and have tons of word of mouth referrals, and that makes me really happy. I say more power to you. But for the most part, a person needs to know how to market themselves in order to actually get people in, whether it's virtual or in person or in a group, to get them there. So I'm going to stop talking for a moment and see if there's any questions.
You actually have a few, at least 2 different programs that I've run across that were really helpful. I know you probably have more than that, but the one that is specifically for groups, it was just sort of a basic layout and like structure of how to do it. I would like to say I use it all the time, but I don't. ADHD here, but I'm aware of it, and I do sometimes use it. But also there was another one, the magic words one that I did, I think in 2020. That was really good too. So if you want to, like, I don't know if you're still promoting those or you know, whatever, but I'm happy to put the links to any of those programs in the group because they're gold. They're gold. They're just so good.
I'll see if I can find those as I talk. I'm not actively promoting them, but they definitely are for sale. And I'll tell you a little bit about them. Mastering group hypnosis sessions is me just taking, let me just see if I can find this real quick. Tradespants.com. I think it's mastering Zoom. Nope. Okay. I'm not gonna try to do that right now, but I will get them to you, Carissa. It's me just taking everything that I've learned from, I started doing group sessions I think in 2017, at the end of 2017, after I trained with Mike, or maybe in 2018. So I've been doing them for years and years. And for probably the last 4 years, I've been doing them every single week inside a platform called Trancy Tuesdays. And so I've learned a lot about the ins and outs of doing group hypnosis sessions. I'm really, really happy to answer any questions you have about that here inside this training. It's not like a secret that I'm going to protect and guard. But things for like getting people engaged, getting people to actually pay attention. Once in a while, you'll have, you know, a screen like this, and I stay in gallery view when I do my calls because I like seeing everyone. And you'll see something like, Elizabeth's beautiful daughter coming and talking to her while she's on the call, and you'll think, oh, Elizabeth doesn't like me because she's talking to her daughter instead of me. This is just a perfect example, Elizabeth. I know it's not true. And it's rough. And so I talk about how to mentally deal with stuff like that happens on the call. Sometimes people will stand up and walk away while you're on the call, or they'll turn around and talk to their husband in the kitchen, or just all kinds of things happen on these calls. And if you're prepared for them, it makes it easier to deal with. And then I talk about calibrating and using a script. This is a controversial thing, you guys, using scripts. And my teacher, Mike Mandel, does not use scripts, and he taught us not to use scripts. But because I do group sessions, and I love the written word. I told you I'm a voracious reader. I love like watching words come together and creating these scripts. It's a really healing, beautiful experience for me. So I do use scripts, but what I do is I have my Zoom window over on this side of my screen so I can see everybody inside Zoom right here. And then I have my script over on this side. So I can actually read my script on my computer screen as I'm going. I don't have to look down. I don't have to have like a noisy piece of paper. And I can just look back and forth. And because Mike's biggest reason, and I think that it's Carl Smith. I think Carl Smith's biggest reason for hating scripts, and I know Mike Mandel's biggest reason he doesn't use scripts, is because you can't calibrate. You're not paying attention to the client as you're reading that script. And so I I'd like to believe that I'm doing both. I'm looking at the room, I'm looking back at my script, I'm looking at the room, I'm looking back at my script, and it allows me to calibrate as I go. And sometimes I will modify my script as I go. If I think, oh, this isn't landing, I'm going to change things up. I don't do that super often. And I think a lot of that is because I've been doing it for a while and I know the people in my group really well and I know what they love. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions about groups. Yes, Krissa.
I just wanted to share something really quick. You probably already have this, but anybody who's not familiar with this is a teleprompter, and you can put it on top of anything, so that you can actually be looking at your camera and reading the script at the same time.
That's amazing. What is that one called?
Just teleprompter.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
what it's
awesome.
called. Yeah. And I use a combination. So like I have a script with bullet points, much like I was a chef for 23 years. So it's very much like how I use recipes. Like I have a recipe, but I don't necessarily follow it. It's more like guidelines, like suggestions, and so that's how I tend to use scripts. Like I have certain things that I'm like, I know I want to touch upon this and this, and then some like new way to phrase something pops in my head and I go, oh yeah, I'll make sure we put that in there. And then sort of wing the rest of it, so, but I appreciate scripts as well. I think sometimes it's, especially with group work, it's really helpful.
Yeah, and when I was doing one-on-one sessions, I didn't use scripts there. I actually often use them now if I do a one-on-one session. Like I said, those are really few and far between. But I don't think you need scripts. I just love them and I use them, and I've taken some heat for it. But I know there are a lot of hypnotists who like scripts and who like to have them. So that's how I use them inside a group hypnosis setting. So if you were doing an in-person group hypnosis session, which I'm kind of thinking I want to start trying out, even if it's like at the local library, Elizabeth is saying yes. There you would probably have a paper with you, unless you had like a podium with your laptop and you could scroll, but or not use a script. It's kind of, it might be different. I don't think I've ever done a group hypnosis session other than my Hypnothoughts presentation when it was just a small part of my training. So any questions?
The in-person group things are a lot of fun. I was doing that at the domestic violence shelter in Bozeman for a while. And I started off with a script, and then after like the first two, I just stopped using scripts and just sort of like went with it. And
that's a great idea. Was it hard to get in there with them?
No, I had a history with them because I was a battered wife for a while. So I had been sort of volunteering and paying that forward for years anyway. So yeah.
Okay.
But it was those women definitely, they ate it up. They needed it. They absorbed it right in there. Yeah, it was good stuff.
I love that idea. Yeah,
I should probably do that here, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. But I wanted to actually touch upon something that you mentioned at the very beginning about, going to therapy and it making you feel like perpetually broken. That was my experience as well. And as a teenager, I was the scapegoat of the family. And so I was the broken one, and that was my assigned role. And in therapy, it was almost as if it made me feel even more broken. And then every birthday, Christmas, etc., my mother would give me self-help books just to reinforce, like, yep, you're still really broken, Krista. Anyway, I think I was like 35. I boxed them all up and sent them back to her. I think you need these more than me. But hypnotherapy and hypnosis has helped me immensely with some physical issues, as well as like I had hardcore anxiety. You can imagine after, being in an abusive marriage, and he stalked me for a while after that too. And so like I had agoraphobia. I mean, like that's how bad the anxiety got. I had straight up agoraphobia, and I've been battling it off and on for like 13 years, honestly. Although I did just move 2,400 miles away, so I think maybe I'm cured. But that was from hypnosis. I mean, honestly, hypnotherapy, like decades of regular talk therapy didn't really help me budge at all. If anything, it made me feel more hopeless. And now we know why, right? You and I both listened to, oh my gosh, what's his name? The podcaster, Huberman.
Yes, Andrew.
Right, Andrew Huberman. When you are intentionally focusing on how bad you feel for 1 hour a week, it's going to have reverberating effects throughout the rest of the week. It's kind of impossible not to, because you're putting all your emotional focus on that. So anyway, thank you so much for touching on that, because that was my experience as well. And a lot of my clients, they'll say like, I've been in therapy and I'm just not feeling better. And so then I'm like, well, this could be why.
Yeah.
So
this is kind of off topic, but I'm going to touch on it since it's on the topic run right now. And that is just inside of parenting or even grandparenting. I'm actually a grandparent now. I have 2 grandbabies that are 2 and 3. And I wish I could think of a good resource to offer. It's not coming. If it comes to my mind, I'll let you know. But I think one of the things that is so important with our kids is that we treat them the way we want them to act. If we treat our kids like bad kids, they're going to think they're bad kids, and they're going to act like bad kids, and they might try not to act like bad kids. And how many of us know that when you're in a hypnosis session and you tell someone to try to unclasp your fingers and find that you cannot, try and find that you cannot, like when someone is trying to do them, it actually destines them for that thing that they're trying not to do. And I tried so hard not to be a bad kid when I was growing up, but like Carissa said, I was the scapegoat of my family, and no matter what, I just like it. If the slightest provocation happened, I would fly off the handle and go into a rage and break things and throw things and just be really rotten. And it's because I thought I was rotten. I so badly didn't want to be a bad kid anymore, but I thought that I was. And when we treat our kids like they're bad kids and we tell them they're naughty, and I'm not saying anyone here would do that, but I think when we can help parents understand the value of talking to their kids as if they are the person they want them to be, that didn't come out just right. Amazing things happen. Yeah.
I agree. And it works for adults too.
Yes. And for ourselves.
If you just treat people as the best version of themselves, a lot of times they rise to the occasion. Like I have a 21-year-old son that's living with me, and that's an interesting roller coaster into itself. But, if I continually treat him as the very best version of himself that he's capable of being, then he continues to rise to being that. And I think so it works for all ages,
We're always having 2 conversations, and this is something that can help you in your sessions with your clients as well. But we're having a spoken verbal conversation, and we're having an unconscious conversation. There's something happening beneath the surface. And this is even true if you don't see the person. Like if you're just talking with someone on the phone, there are unconscious things coming across. I'm talking to their unconscious mind with my unconscious mind in a really powerful way. And when we remember that, we can use our intention to even just like when we're in a client session, just say, I wish you to be happy. I wish you to be well. I wish you to be healed. I wish you to be whole. And just start to think of them thriving, starting to make mental images of them thriving, of them like free, of them in the place where they're going to be when they are free of this problem. Their unconscious mind picks that up. And I think that's even more powerful than anything we say. And that's one of the reasons I use scripts. I think my scripts, they're mostly just flower language that I love talking about, but the real change happens unconsciously. And I put my scripts together in a way that allow the unconscious to do what it needs to do, because I don't presume that I know what that needs to be, but their unconscious mind understands that. I think did I see questions come in?
There was just somebody who said that they were interested. Oh, hold on. There's a couple of things. Interested to know more about the group session course, and then also time is an illusion. Was Elizabeth had mentioned that, and then
yes.
And then she said, reminds me of Melissa Tiers quoting John Overdurf, something along the lines of, the way you see someone in your mind is the best they can be in your presence.
That's really good, and I think that's true. I'm Googling right now to see if I can find my mastery group hypnosis sessions. Oh, I think I found it. You guys, I've been seeing double. I have these ridiculous glasses that I wear most of the time. And they're fogged out on one side to keep me from seeing double, but I didn't want to wear them for this call. So if you see me closing one eye, that's why.
I thought you were just winking at us.
Yes, I am. Andrea, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm the one particularly interested in group sessions. I posted it on Facebook earlier today. I got a few people. We're going to set up a group and just kind of brainstorm what we can do about that, like going forward. And I've been looking at your course and it sounds really good. And no doubt I'm definitely going to sign up for it, possibly by the end of the week. But I did want to ask, when you structure your sessions, and I watched your anger session yesterday, I watched the replay, and I noticed that you have this, which was great, by the way, I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
I noticed that you have this interaction, like just before the hypnosis. Now, that was the area that I was feeling kind of a little bit kind of, not necessarily lost, but I thought it's a bit of a gray area because I work with anxiety. What I don't want is to have people trying to take over the session with their particular issue, especially when it's in a group scenario. So I was thinking perhaps to do it without having the interaction and having it not as a webinar. It would be set up like this, but it would be less of that interaction. And do you think that would work if I was to present it in that way?
Yeah, I do. And sometimes I interact inside my weekly sessions and sometimes I don't. But people kind of know the format because many of them have been coming for months or even years. And so they know that we do the icebreaker at the start, then we talk for a little bit, then we'd go into the hypnosis session. And they know if they steal the show, once in a while that happens, but it's really, really rare. They know if they steal the show, they're going to throw off everybody's groove. So, but I do think that you can do it without opening it up conversationally, as long as you really have your finger on the pulse of what the people there are needing and wanting and feeling and what their obstacle is. And you could even have them put that in the chat. It's interesting because like even in this session right now, there's not a lot of questions coming in the chat. The chat, people aren't always into the chat. If you think of a compliance set, so you might tell someone, relax your hands separately onto your lap, relax your feet separately on the floor, and then just close your eyes. You're bossing them around 3 times. You're giving them 3 commands and they're following what you're doing. And then when you tell them the next thing, they're going to be so much more likely to do that because you followed that compliance set. Well, it can be the exact same thing in a hypnosis session. So if I would have started this session and say, everybody just put in the chat where you're from, that's super easy. You don't have to think, you don't have to try to make sure you're getting it right. It's usually one word and you're starting to get used to putting things in the chat. And then if I maybe said, okay, now write down what you had for lunch yesterday or you know, something like that, people would put that in the chat. And so then if I were to say, if you have any questions or if you want to share like how you're specifically struggling with anxiety, like the #1 obstacle that anxiety poses in your life, put that in the chat. And then I will go and save my chat, Andrea, because those chats are so valuable. So I'll actually save my chat at the end of the call and go through and read it, because a lot of times I won't read it during the call because it makes me so distracted. I lose my place.
I was going to ask about that, especially at the beginning when you haven't done group sessions before. I think it would throw me quite a bit to then be reading what's in the chat.
Yeah. But having it in there, you have what I call their magic words. So this is the way they talk about anxiety. And so when you say, hey, I'm going to do an anxiety session to help people with this, if you actually use the words that they put in the chat and say to help people with this, and you phrase it the exact same way they phrased it in the chat, you are going to have people lining up to sign up because they're going to resonate with that. And they're going to say, that's me. Whereas sometimes we try to like make the words sound flowery and try to make it sound all cool, and it doesn't click with anyone. So when you get them to write in the chat, even if you don't use it in that session, it's like pure gold to have those words.
Okay, that's a really good tip. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Any other questions? Or is there anything else you'd like me to talk about, Carissa?
I would like to ask you about that one question, my favorite question to ask everybody, which
Okay.
is, what's the most exciting, interesting, strange, unusual, unexpected thing that's ever happened either to you or with you as a
Okay.
result of your work as a hypnotist?
So this, if I had all day to think about this, I might choose a different story, but the story that comes to mind happened when I was a brand new hypnotist. So this is probably, I want to say this was like within a few days of me getting back from Canada and training with Mike Mandel. And I don't know if any of you have ever felt like this, but when I was freshly trained, I felt like the biggest freaking imposter. I still feel that way sometimes. And I want to say that because having that feeling does not mean that it's true, and does not mean that you should wait for the feeling to go away. The feeling actually goes away when you take action. But I felt like the biggest imposter, you guys. I was so scared. And I guess I won't say who it is, just in case somehow this call gets back to that person. I don't think it would, but a family member's good friend's son was addicted to, I think it was heroin. I don't remember anymore, but it was like one of those hard, scary drugs that makes you go on the inside when you hear. And he was young. He was like in his early 20s. He had a new baby and he was married, and he wasn't allowed to see his baby because his wife was like pissed. She was done. And this guy wanted to be okay so badly, but he didn't know how to be okay. And my brother had mentioned, oh, it was my brother's friend. My brother had mentioned that I was studying hypnosis. And so she said, oh, would she do a session with my son? So I'm like, I don't know how to help this guy. Like, I have what I'm doing. I didn't bring a script in. But I had been binge watching David Snyder videos. And I don't know how many of you have seen David Snyder do his spinning technique, but I freaking loved his spinning technique. I still love that technique. In fact, I think it could quite possibly be the only technique a person needs to change someone's life. So I go and meet this guy at his mom's house.
Feel free to share the technique at the end of the story too, since you promote it.
Yeah, well, it was okay, I will. And I was so scared, and I was acting confident. You know, I had my head high, I was taking deep breaths. When we change our physiology, it changes everything. And so I changed my physiology to match confidence, but inside I was freaking terrified. And I talked to this guy forever because I was so afraid to actually do any hypnosis with him. And he told me that the reason he had a drug problem is because when he was a kid, he had would throw up if he, like, I can't remember, why was it? He would throw up if he saw someone else throw up. And there were different things that made him throw up, and he was terrified of throwing up. And so he had gone to an amusement park when he was a little boy, and he saw someone throw up, and it made him throw up, and he just had an absolute meltdown and had his mom take him home, and he wouldn't leave the house for days. So he missed school. Like, he was just an absolute basket case from the situation. It was just debilitating to him. And he felt so broken. He felt so much like he wasn't a part of his friend group. He felt like he didn't fit in at school, that he started using drugs just to get out of bed in the morning, just to get to, like, go to school during the day. And he started using drugs when he was really young. I want to say it was maybe in junior high or middle school, whichever. It was junior high when I was there. And so I realized that at the base of this drug use was this fear of seeing someone throw up. And I'm not totally sure that's exactly what it was. Whatever it was, it made him throw up, but I think it was when he sees other people. Sorry, I'm saying throw up so many times. And so at the end of the session, I had him stand up, because when we change our physiology, everything changes. I think that's so important. If you only take one thing away from this session, remember, when you change your body language, everything changes. So I had him stand up, and I stood up, and I came and I stood next to him. And I said, okay, I want you just to close your eyes for a minute. And by now I had lots of rapport with him. He and I had been chatting. And I knew that he was going to follow where I led. He felt safe with me. He trusted me. I said, just close your eyes for a minute and just think about seeing someone throw up. Imagine the smell. Like I really, what's called vivified that experience. I had him vividly imagine seeing someone throw up, which seems like a dirty trick, but this is necessary to get a person to become free. They have to really feel the suck. And so I had him feel that sensation of seeing someone else throw up, and then to scan his body and notice where he feels it the most. And I don't remember, it's been years. Like I said, I think this was 2017, but we'll say it was right here. And I said, okay, what I want you to do is just pretend like you could reach in. And this is David Snyder's spinning technique. And you can all do this with me. Let's do this all together. So think about something that has been bothering you lately, some behavior, some person that's driving you nuts, something that if you could walk away from this call and be totally free of, that you would just be ecstatic. And just allow yourself, close your eyes for a moment and just think about that situation that's been bothering you. Maybe think about that person that drives you nuts and imagine hearing their annoying voice. Just vividly imagine that this thing is happening to you right now, and see what you see when this is happening. Hear what you hear, feel what you feel. And now just scan your body and notice where you feel that feeling the most, where that feeling lives. It's actually completely okay to guess or make it up. It works just as well. So just notice where it is. And then what I'd like you to do is open your eyes and imagine that you could just reach in and pull that thing out and hold it in front of you. Just hold it right here in front of you. And just check in for a second, because sometimes that stuff hides. So just make sure you've got all of it. If you don't, you could just reach in and get the rest of it. And just as you have it out here in your hands, I want you just to observe it. And just notice, and again, here you're just going to use your imagination. Pretend like you're 4 while you do this. What color is it? How is it moving? What's the texture like? And this is a little bit different than David Snyder does it. I'll tell you what he does different at the end, but just notice how it's moving. And now what I'd like you to do is think about, would you like to have this back? Do you want to put it back inside your body, or do you want to get rid of it? Now, I will tell you 99.9% of people want to get rid of it. Once in a while, they don't, but 90% of the time. So I'm just going to assume you want to get rid of it. And what I want you to do is imagine, even if it happens to be nighttime where you are, that we're going to throw this through the roof and up to the sun, and it's going to dissolve on the sun. So we're going to do this all together on the count of 3. And I want you to physically throw this up through the ceiling. 1, 2, 3. Look up. Hear it sizzle on the sun. And now hold back your empty hands in front of you. And just imagine, what would you like to put here? Like if you could put the most beautiful thing here, we're going to reverse engineer this. What color would it be? What texture would it be? When you have this, what do you say to yourself, or what do you know about that situation? So just observe this beautiful thing in your hands. Just imagine that it's there. And what we're doing right now is working on an unconscious level. It works so much better than working on a conscious level. You're going to be amazed by this. And in a moment, I'm going to count to 3. And I want you to bring this back into your body. I want you to physically pull it into your body wherever it belongs. It might be where the other thing was, or it might be somewhere else. 1, 2, 3. And just allow that to resonate, to radiate through the body, filling your body from the top of your head down to the soles of your feet. As you say that powerful thing to yourself, and hear yourself saying that thing from the most authentic part of you, coming from the most authentic place, in your most authentic voice. Feel it enter your arms and your legs. Feel it moving through you. Feel that texture, feel that movement, that color. And as you sleep and dream tonight, this is going to be firmly embedded. It's going to go in, and it's going to install itself in the places where you need it the most, where it brings the most freedom, where it creates the most healing. And I want you to imagine that it's years from now, many, many years, decades from now, and you're on your deathbed and you're looking back at this moment and you're realizing that's when that change happened. Because it really can be this easy. And when you're ready, you can go ahead and open your eyes and come back to right now. And I've been doing hypnosis for several years since I did that the first time. So I did it so much better just now than I did it then. I sucked at it then, but I did it anyway. And I forgot to future pace him, which is where you say, imagine this. I forgot to install it, which are two things Mike Mandel teaches, is always install the change, always future pace, which I did both of those things with you just now. But I didn't do that with him. And afterwards I beat myself up. I'm like, oh, I should have done this. I should have done this. If only I would have done this. You guys, that guy has not touched drugs since that moment. And he could be lying. He could be full of crap, but because he's a family friend, he's actually working for my brother now, and he's completely drug free. And what he claims is that he didn't touch drugs once since that session. Oh, I'm so sorry, you guys. I'm such an emotional human.
That's so beautiful. You gave him his life back. That is so amazing. And his son, right? Because he had a baby boy.
Right. He has 2 kids now, and he's
yeah.
back with his wife, and yeah.
That was beautiful.
He's in a totally different place. Yeah. So the moral of that story is, do it afraid. Do it imperfectly. Remember, we're always having 2 conversations with someone. We're having a conscious mind conversation and an unconscious mind conversation. And I knew that. So I was imagining him free as best I could, even though I felt so insecure. And I think that's where the change came in, because I screwed up all of it. So real quick, the way David Snyder does it is he has you pull the feeling out, and then he has you spin it. Or he has you imagine what way it's spinning. So let's say it's spinning this way. You stop it and you spin it the other way. You spin it faster and faster and faster and faster until it's changed so much you can't change it anymore. And then you slam it back in. But I learned from Joan Courtney to throw it away, and I like that one even better. And I just have to acknowledge Nick real quick, because you've been here the whole time and I didn't realize it was you till just now. All right. I'll be quiet in case anyone else has something they want to share or ask.
Nick actually posted something in the chat that's was great. He says, is there any reason you might want to keep this? Could be a great way of getting the secondary gain check.
Yeah, that is a great idea.
Yeah.
And I have had people that, like, whatever it is that they pulled out, they weren't totally sure it was right to get rid of it, but they wanted to change it. And so they would tweak it and change it. And I could say, you could actually have them keep the thing right there in their hands and say, okay, now imagine it turning into the color that's like the perfect color, the perfect texture, the perfect movement, and then bring it back in. So that's another alternative that you could do if someone is hesitant to get rid of it. I've only had that happen once, I think, that I can recall. Yeah.
Touching back on imposter syndrome, which I think most of us have felt a little bit at some point or another, right? It occurred to me probably just about a year ago or so that I was working with a lot of people in, the realm of hypnotherapy, like they're becoming hypnotherapists or hypnotists who have this. And it occurred to me that I would much prefer to work with somebody who has imposter syndrome over somebody who has Dunning-Kruger, which is the exact opposite. Like, if you think that you know everything all the time, you're an impossible person to help. But if you are going through the world worried that you're, an imposter or you're a fraud or whatever, I feel like there's a level of sincerity there that you can build upon the foundations of, and just by taking action, like you said, that's where the confidence comes in. And then I think you and I were talking about this on the phone recently, but maybe it was you, it might've been somebody else, but I think it was you. When somebody had asked me, like, how do you do all these things? Like, where's your anxiety? Like, I don't understand how you're able to do this. And I'm like, I have anxiety. I just do it anyway. Like, yeah. I feel the fear. The fear doesn't just suddenly magically go away, but I'm an intensely curious human being. And so that ends up winning out over the fear, Yeah.
That's beautiful. Curiosity is such a valuable trait.
Yes. And you have that as well. I mean, it comes through in everything. You're very fascinated by human nature, and
Yeah.
it comes through in your calls and in your group work and your presentations and everything. And I think that is one of those things that you kind of need to have in order to be successful as a change maker, right? Change worker.
And I would imagine most hypnotists probably have that. I will say real quick, what Chris was mentioning about imposter syndrome, I have a podcast called Silence the Imposter Monster. I haven't recorded anything for a while, since my second grandbaby was born, which was 2 years ago. But if you Google Silence the Imposter Monster, I know it's on YouTube. I think it's on still a few podcast platforms. But what I discovered when I was doing that podcast, I think I did it for 2 years, and I interviewed so many hypnotists, people like Freddie Jacquin and Carl Smith, and I think I interviewed David Snyder, Jason Linett, and I realized all these people have imposter syndrome. We all have imposter syndrome. So if you have that, it actually means you're exactly where you're supposed to be. It means you're human. And so my podcast shows people ways to get on top of that, which really, I'll just tell you right now in a nutshell, is doing it afraid. You cannot wait for the feeling to go away. You cannot wait for imposter syndrome to stop. You gotta do it afraid.
And then it becomes muscle memory. Just keep doing it,
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of, just in my own quantum journeys hypnosis, a lot of students who are like, I'm so afraid to actually get out there and start doing it professionally, and they're like trying to get the confidence to do it before they do it. And I'm like, no, it's a cart horse here. Okay. Like, you got to do it to get the confidence, and then just keep doing it. So
yeah, I think the people who have the confidence already are the people that you were talking about, Krista, that are difficult to deal with. If a person is like super confident or even super cocky, I think they're maybe less likely to get the change than if they come in with that humility. And it's okay. It really is okay. People call it faking it till you make it. I do not think it's faking it. And this is the most valuable technique I teach. People have come to me and told me that they love this more than anything else I teach. And it's so freaking easy. And it takes about 30 seconds. And so this is a way to step into confidence when you have imposter syndrome. And it's called the 3 B's. So the 3 B's are body language, breathing, and belief. And I think it's pretty important to do them in that order. If you've ever tried affirmations and the affirmations haven't worked for you, it's because that's just the 3rd B. The belief is what we're saying to ourselves. And so if you're just changing that 3rd B, you're just changing the affirmation, but you're not changing the other 2 B's first, it falls to the floor. So what you want to do is you want to change your body language. And if you want to try this with me right now, imagine that there's a magic string right in the center of your head, and that it's pulling you up, and that it's lifting you up, and it's allowing your bones to align. And notice how Elizabeth, who is a ballerina, is better at this than everyone else. And it just allows your shoulders to relax and maybe come back a little bit. You can slightly lift your chin. You can lift your eyes and look up. You can outstretch your arms if you feel comfortable doing so, and smile. Just paste the most cheesy grin on your face, and imagine doing this and trying to feel like crap. How hard would it be to feel like crap when you do this? And now take a nice deep breath from low in the belly, as if you're expanding your belly, and let it out with a long, slow exhale. Andrew Huberman, who Carissa mentioned earlier, has a technique called the physiological sigh. And I think even if a person just had this one technique, it would change everything. And it happens when you breathe in through the nose, through a double inhale, and out with a long exhale. And he says 1 is usually enough. At the very most, you'll need 3. So you could use that physiological sigh. If you don't know how to change your breath, you can plug in that physiological sigh anytime you want to change who you are being, which is essentially the 4th B. Our body language, breathing, and belief changes who we are being. So that's the first 2 B's, body language and breathing. And now we'll go into the belief. So this one, I've actually kind of restructured the way I think about this lately. The more simple you keep it, the better. You've probably heard these like complex, flowery, woo-woo affirmations. And I actually think those affirmations, I think they're awesome, but I don't think it's the way our unconscious mind naturally thinks. Our unconscious mind is kind of childlike, and it's usually going to have super duper simple affirmations that might be as simple as I am here and it is good. Or it might be, oh, when we're in the zone, maybe you've noticed this, like if you've ever been in the zone, like if there's a craft you love to do or a sport you love to do, something you love to do, and you really just are in the zone while you're doing it, you'll find that your mind is often kind of blank, that you're not necessarily thinking anything, that you are just in the zone. So sometimes when you change those first two B's, that third B is just going to be quiet. And that's okay, because if it's quiet, you're not thinking, oh, I screwed that up. I should have future paced him. I should have done this. I should have done this. So that 3 B's, it took me a couple minutes to describe it to you, but it takes like 30 seconds to do by yourself. And it is an absolute game changer. So I invite you to take that one to the bank.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just pure gold. Every
Oh,
little bit.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for coming. Also, if you look over in the chat box, there are, and I'll put them up again. This is Lori's site where you can opt in. I believe I did just click on it and it takes
Yeah, I
me
have a free hypnosis audio there.
Yeah,
And if
there we
you
go.
sign up
Yep.
for that, it will put you in my email list, and I send out a Sunday cheat sheet every week. So I'm not super salesy. Sometimes I'll be selling something, but it's mostly just nourishing people.
Yeah. And I love your Sunday cheat sheets. Those are great.
Thank you.
This last one on anger was really powerful too.
Thank you.
I feel like I'm signed up for all of our colleagues' Sunday. Like, honestly, I could spend 2 hours every Sunday just reading emails from all of our colleagues.
Yeah, me too.
There is also the link for the YouTube channel. So go ahead and click like and subscribe, because this is going to be there. And I'm slowly getting all of the old ones on there. I think I've got about 15 now, maybe. But we've been doing this for 2.5 years now. So there's several more that I'm still uploading. And then the last link is just if you want to donate $2 of notes of appreciation. And I love that phrase. So thank you, Lori. That came directly from you. Did you make that up, or did you pick that up from somewhere else? I've always wondered.
Craft.
Oh, okay. I love it. And so thank you so much for everything. That was just a lot of, you jam-packed a lot of great and wonderful information into this hour. And I just love these. I love these calls. There's the casual. I just feel very supported, and I hope that you guys do too. And we'll see you in 2 weeks for the mastermind. Are you going to be on the mastermind, Lori?
I probably will. If you want to send me a link, I would love to be there.
Yes. It'll be you and Jonathan, Nan, and me, and maybe one more. So if you think
Love
of somebody
that.
else that you think would be a good fit, let me know.
Okay.
So that's on the 3rd Wednesday of every month. We have the mastermind squad. And then on the 1st Wednesday of every month, we have the spotlight guest hosts. So thank you for being our spotlight guest host today, Lori. Have a wonderful rest of your week, everyone. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.